Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to talk about my top 30 characters for Shadowland. Now I know this game mode has frustrated a lot of players because of how poor the rewards are after stage 30, but it's still important for, intermediate players to build up those first 30 stages worth of characters, and for veterans to know which 30 characters they should be saving for stages, 50 to 80 if they want to use up all of their characters, because you got to get to 80 to flush out all of your characters to get the most number of tokens. And who knows if they ever fix Shadowland's rewards. They finally fixed the game mode. If one day they decide to fix the rewards, maybe this content will be even more useful for everyone, and we can all go back to loving the fuck out of Shadowland. So to start off, I wanted to divide the top 30 into different categories of character. I didn't want to just go number 30, number 1, because that's not really fun, interesting, and it doesn't really highlight the uniqueness of some of these characters, because let's be honest, a lot of these characters can do many different stages. So to really try and nitpick, Wolverine's number 18, but Mr. Fantastic is number 9, I really can't say the difference between those two characters. It's impossible. So rather than actually doing a top 30 in terms of 30 to 1, these are just 30 characters that I've compiled into different categories. We'll start off with the most powerful category, which I refer to as the insane Shadowland characters, and I'll just briefly go down the list of characters and explain what makes them insane. And actually, I'm starting with Magneto because he's probably the biggest surprise. And I don't think many of you necessarily expected Magneto to be so insanely good for Shadowland, but he is, and he doesn't need to be tier 3 for this insanity to ensue. The reason why Magneto is so good, on top of being a blast villain, which is a slightly rarer tag, it really comes from his uniform and his Master of Magnetism passive. So his passive gives him an 80% increase damage dealt to human characters, which means that he not only does an insane amount of damage to most characters in Shadowland, because most of them are humans, he can also bypass the stage requirements, because although it reduces his damage to 1, he then increases it by 80%. In addition to that, his uniform gives him an extra 45% damage increase to machine type characters. So you can basically double dip on certain stages where you fight against humans and machines. For example, there's a wave mode where you fight against different characters, and some of them are machine types and some of them are humans, and you can just completely blow through the stage with Magneto because he's dealing 80% more, 45% more, and he's just completely melting the stage requirements. If you get him to tier 3, it gets even crazier with his tier 3 skill because of the all defense down, but he's an absolute monster for Shadowland, and having 4 iframes out of 5 and crazy CC doesn't hurt either. Deadpool, you guys already know the story with him, why he's an insane Shadowland character, all defense down. He can possibly make a couple of other lists or a couple of the other categories on this list because of his insane healing factor, which basically means it's a risk-free playthrough. You're not going to die with him on the Shadowland stage, or you're either going to kill the enemy or run out of time, but it's really the all defense down in combination with his bonkers damage that makes him, pretty much perfect for every stage. Another thing you'll notice about the majority of characters on the insane group, in this grouping, they have a self-buffing leadership, which is super important, which means you don't have to worry about bringing along a leadership to buff their damage. At least for these two guys, they do. The last one who has self-buffing damage in the insane category is Scarlet Witch. I don't really need to go into much detail. She's got all defense down, she's got mind resistance down, she's got crazy AoE with collapsing reality and hex blast, recovery, reflect, guard hit, everything. She has everything. It's wild. The last two you can pretty much guess at this point. We've got Sharon Rogers, who is just insane. Even at tier 2, she's very, very strong. You'll end up killing people before you even charge up her tier 3 skill anyways, and she's got both physical and energy, which means that she's able to do both stages quite well. And her 5th skill, Energy Piercer, has crazy guard break. It's not listed, but it really does help crowd control them, kind of like her old 5th skill with the black orb, so the CC is there. And then of course we have Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel, just an insane character, especially at tier 3, but even at tier 2, you don't have to worry about iframes because she's got photon combo. You let off that radiant form and you start hammering people. Because we discovered that physical versus energy situation with radiant form, you can also choose to bring in Captain Marvel to stages where she would otherwise get killed from energy reflect, and you can actually still dominate the stage by not going into radiant form, and vice versa. If it's a physical reflect stage, just always have radiant form up and you can kite them around when you're not. But I don't think you're going to need to kite because her damage is bonkers. The next two are pretty straightforward. They're risky but great. So they're great damage characters, but they're a little bit riskier to play as. Captain America is the first one I want to talk about. There's only two on this list. The problem with Captain America, specifically at tier 3, because I don't know if he makes this list at tier 2, is Heroic Charge. It gets interrupted by iframes. It gets interrupted if he gets guard broken. It's a tricky skill to use, so if you're not careful, if the enemy doesn't do enough damage to you to ramp up the accumulation, you're not going to do much damage with your tier 3 skill, and then you might run out of time. So he is quite tricky and quite challenging to use. The second one is Gambit, and while Gambit is still quite easy to use because his third skill, Spin Rush, has a 4-second fear, he is still very vulnerable, and if the character has, reduced crowd control duration so that it's not quite 4 seconds, or if they dodge the fear effect or something happens, or the iframe, you're in for a lot of trouble because he basically just has 5, and he's got the iframe on 3, and that's it. He's got a conditional iframe on 4, but relying on that means that Gambit is probably already in trouble. In addition, like in contrast to the risky but great characters, these, I think it's 6 or 7, are kind of risk-free. And they may not have the most damage in the game, but these characters, due to self-healing or due to skills that heal massive amounts of their HP back, you basically aren't going to die. So you basically just have to worry about killing the enemy within the 3 minutes, which is really nice for Shadowland because it takes a lot of the pressure off dodging attacks and, being all defensive and timing your iframes and shit like that. Of course, we've got the combination of Juggernaut and Sabretooth, and while they're great for Shadowland for other reasons, the fact that they have that healing factor means that any mistakes you make, even if you're a VIP 0 and you can't switch characters to get that heal, you're going to get the heal anyways. As long as they are tier 2, I believe actually Juggernaut needs to be tier 2, Sabretooth can be tier 1, you're going to get that heal and you'll be just fine. Speaking of heals, Wolverine, another one, not the top DPS on this list by any means, but with that crazy healing factor, you just have to whittle them down minute by minute, and you're definitely gonna win it. Following him up, we have Dr. Doom and Victorious, his apprentice. Now, Dr. Doom doesn't have a passive heal like the other characters I mentioned, but Science and Magic, 50% heal is insane. So even if you only have him at level 60, he can put in a ton of work. He's got long iframes that he can stall behind. He's got fusion energy with guard break, or at least super armor penetration. And it's got the all defense down, so you can kind of stack that as well. Even if he dies, you revive because he's got the Doombot decoy. So he's pretty much a risk-free Shadowland character. And then of course his apprentice, if I will ever be able to find her, Victorious. She has, where the hell is Victorious? She has the shield. She has the HP shield on Impending Doom. She gets a 35% shield. She decreases her damage received by 60%. She turns into a super tank. On top of that, she applies 30% HP to herself. She's got a long iframe on 2, which you can cycle through every 3 seconds with max skill cooldown. It's basically impossible for her to die unless she got, extremely heavily crowd controlled, like webbed up multiple times if you're trying a 4 versus 1, the Spider Rumble. But other than that, there's pretty much no way she's going to die. Finally, we have Human Torch, one of my favorite free-to-play characters in the game. He's got iframes, he's got immunity, all defense down, he's got crazy dodge, but it's that 5th skill, 30% recovery, which ticks twice, so you get 60% recovery. Yes, he has more recovery than Dr. Doom, which is fucking insane. He's amazing, and he's basically a complete, cakewalk for Shadowland because of how easily he can fix any of your mistakes. The next 4 characters I want to talk about, they're all ladies, and they have crowd control and damage. So whether you need them for the DPS or whether you just need them to come in and crowd control, mind control, charm, enchant, lock down the enemy so that other characters can do their work, or to protect other characters if you happen to roll a rumble and you have to bring along 2 others that can't necessarily do any damage, but they need to survive the stage so you can get those tokens. You can rely on these beautiful women. Of course, Invisible Woman, we don't have to know too much more. Intangible Spears got the 5 seconds of charm every 3.5 seconds. So do the math on that one. they're never going anywhere. Psylocke, pretty much the same thing. Her damage is also amazing. Super high AoE on her 5th skill. I think she's a little bit more fun to play than Invisible Woman for Shadowland, but she also has 5 seconds of Mind Control. Mind Control, unlike Charm, will force the enemies to attack each other, so it'll be an additionally hilarious thing because the enemies will just go at each other and start doing the work for you, basically, which speeds things up. Emma Frost, another female blast who has Mind Control, this time on her 5th skill. It's not listed, but it's there, and it does the damage that it's... I'm pretty sure it's there. And yeah, it Mind Controls them for the 5 seconds, and then she can just go ahead and do everything else that she needs to do to get the job done. Finally, we have Strife. Strife has very good damage, but even if you build him defensively, he's got very good penetration on Power Curtain, so he's got 80% chance, so he's constantly guard breaking because of the super armor penetration. Chaos Gate, Psionic Cannon, Maelstrom of Chaos, Force of Strife. You've got Fear, Stun, Bind, Fracture everywhere. You're just going to stack up so many debuffs that the enemy's not going to be able to move an inch, and you can easily lock down multiple characters in like a rumble because all these skills have massive AoE. He summons meteors, he summons these crazy, orbs that shoot balls out of them. He summons tornadoes. It's just wild. The next two are pretty unique. They are damage and support healing. Now this is a pretty rare combination to have in the game, so while I originally wanted to put Luna Snow in the insane category because she's absolutely an insane damage dealer, I've got to highlight the very rare, the very unique properties of both her 5th skill, Winter Heart, and Tonight. While they are both self-healing skills, if your teammates are close enough to her, they will also heal her. And it's a little bit harder with her 5th skill because I believe it only ticks once, but with Tonight it will tick multiple times. It's 7% recovery, but I think it ticks at least 6 or 7 times. So you have 6 or 7 chances to run over to your teammate and heal them, and that's super amazing to have a character with crazy damage who can actively heal other characters. You don't have to get hit for the heal to trigger. Nothing has to happen. You don't have to drop something on the ground that your teammate has to run over. You go ahead and initiate the healing for them, which is amazing. The only other character that qualifies for this, Weapon Hex, also good damage, also has Mind Control on Reality Slice. In addition to that, Witchcraft will create a little red orb that follows you around, and each one of your teammates will get one as well, and it will proc a heal that will help you by healing you. So she, instead of creating a passive or an active heal like Luna Snow, I was getting ahead of myself, she creates a passive heal, which is very cool and super unique. The next list is probably my favorite list, and it's the second to last list. These are the Quirky Shadowland characters. Now these characters, again, don't necessarily have the best damage, but they do something special that makes them very good, and it usually involves buffs and debuffs. So in Thanos' case, it really comes down to Titan Punch. It removes all buffs, which allows Thanos, like very few other characters, to complete any Shadowland stage. And it's super important for you to know, even if you have a 2 or 3-star Thanos, you can complete, as long as you have the damage, you can complete any Shadowland stage with Thanos because he will strip away all of the buffs, which strips away all of the requirements. It's a female stage, Thanos says, no, it's not. It's a hero stage, Thanos says, no, it's not. It's amazing, super fun, super quirky, and it gives him just incredible flexibility. Like Thanos, his kind of counterpart in some of the in-game cinematics, Doctor Strange, same effect, Demons of Denek, removes all buffs. It's beautiful. Kind of a forgotten, sort of forcefully forgotten character. No one wants to remember Apocalypse, but he also has the same effect. I tend to forget sometimes, but Impending Doom has the same remove all buff from target. So this is a very important buff, or very important skill buff to have. If Apocalypse gets a uniform that brings him up to the level of Thanos or Doctor Strange, he could become super powerful, mainly because he has this, and this opens the door for him to do so many things that otherwise he couldn't do. He also has a lot of other really powerful passive effects, but that one is super great and super quirky, which makes him, just very flexible and very useful, even at 3-4 stars for any Shadowland stage. Another quirky character for Shadowland who's definitely top 30 material is Sentinel. Any character that has summons has this property, but essentially your summons are not punished or penalized by the tier 1 or tier 2 requirement. So what that means is after stage 24, from 25 to 30, and then beyond 30, all characters will be at least tier 2 that you fight in Shadowland. They will no longer be classified as tier 1, which means that if you're a tier 1 and they're a tier 2, you're going to deal drastically reduced damage. That's why if you bring your tier 1s into a stage 25 entry mode, you're probably going to die and you're not going to do any damage. Sentinel, while he doesn't do much damage, his Sentinel army, which has 100% of his stats, they're basically duplicates, they will do full damage. They are not bound by the laws of regular Shadowland rules. So you can go in with a tier 1 6-star Sentinel, which is why he's a pretty good option to choose as a premium character, even if you're free to play, along with Luna Snow and a few others. He can go into any Shadowland stage that he's applicable for, and he can dominate because of Sentinel Army being able to do full damage. And his damage is not bad. He's got a good passive. He's a universal, so he can apply to any stage that's not hero specific because he's a villain. He's got the extra damage and reduction against mutants who are super popular. Very, very quirky character. Very, very good character. The last one on the quirky list is kind of an underdog at this point. Ghost. A lot of players built her up for ABX. Korath came around and then she got dumped in the trash. But honestly, she's super fun for Shadowland because she's super boring, but she gets the job done. She has so many debuffs that she applies, like just on intel gathering. If you look at all of the debuffs, you remove effects from the enemy that they've placed. You reduce their attack. You reduce their defense. You reduce their speed. On one skill, she has 4 debuffs. You keep going down the list. More all defense down. Shock damage. More all defense down. Stun. 5th skill. More fear. More shock. Just so many different debuffs, stacking on stacking and stacking and stacking, and you watch the enemy's health just melt away. Unlike other game modes, honestly, Ghost is very good for Shadowlands. Self-buffing leadership, super easy to play. Just 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 5 4 3 2 1 5 4 3 2 1, and they will just melt away. And she can do those villain stages easy as butter. The last characters on the list, I don't really want to go into detail about each one of them because they don't have anything too special or unique about them. They're just great overall. Their damage is great, their AoE is great, their crowd control is there, and they can just be utilized for any stage that they're available for with great success. So we've got Cable, Mr. Fantastic, Thor, Minerva, Winter Soldier, and Quicksilver. Winter Soldier has a little bit with the iframe ignore, but otherwise, these are just dominant characters. If you've ever watched any YouTuber do a Shadowland highlight video, you've probably seen at least one of these characters completely dunk a stage. So if you want to get more Shadowland content, you know where to find me, twitch.tv/Cynicalex. Let me know what you think of my top 30 list and my different categories. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.